Hey, welcome to Scale with Benefits. My name is Jake Rush, and I want to walk you through some really important things to help your business grow and help you understand the healthcare system. One of the biggest problems is people don't understand health insurance versus healthcare. They're two different things, but unfortunately, a lot of people just blindly send money in or pay invoices to health insurance companies and don't ask questions and dig into the details. It's really very interesting when you do, and I'm going to walk you through really quickly how it works and what you can do to make sure it's working better for you so you can help your business scale and use money the right way to invest in your employees and your company's growth and get more return on those dollars versus just paying those to an insurance company and just assuming that's the way it is. It's not. So, first thing, who am I? My name is Jake Rush, and I've been a 401k advisor in the employee benefits space the last decade. And I've realized working with multiple companies, thousands of employees, the biggest problem to their 401k was healthcare. The premiums continue to rise. So I made the decision earlier this year. I said, I've got to do something about this. This problem is too massive. So I did my research, did my due diligence, and dug through a few different companies, met with a bunch of different ones, and figured out that I wanted to join a large national firm that had the service and the team that I needed to be able to help my clients be successful, but most importantly, give you all of the resources you possibly could need for your company's growth from beginning to acquisition or going public or raising more money. I mean, there's all sorts of scenarios, right? So I, over the last decade, though, have learned a lot about just how companies operate, and I've been fascinated by the different ways that they've been able to scale. And unfortunately, a lot of them just continue to stay with the same vendors or systems or products that they have set up early in their business. And as their business scaled and grow, they didn't really take any time to dig into the details or didn't have a good benefits partner, consultant to really help them navigate the system. So, for the last 10 years, there's been a massive change in healthcare. And the reason for that is the Affordable Care Act. And that was another reason why I wanted to move to USI, because there's a lot of regulation and compliance, a lot more than than other areas of your business possibly. You need to make sure you're following these rules. And as your company grows, there's different things to look at. So what happened is I did some research. USI is a huge company with 200 offices, 10,000 employees. We've got account managers that are able to dig into the details from the day to day. We also have the resources to do benchmarking to really help your company stay on track and stay competitive and get the talent you need to grow. So, the Affordable Care Act. This is back in 2010. President Obama, signed this act into place, which really changed the landscape of the healthcare industry. And the idea behind there's a lot of different ideas behind it, but Obamacare was set up to basically try and spread the risk out across, as many people as possible. Meaning, if we have a lot of healthy people, instead of just people that need healthcare because they're maybe not as healthy, then it reduces the cost for everybody. And that's kind of how insurance works, right? It's a risk game, and we want to look at how we can do that. So Affordable Care Act was put in place, which now requires you, if you're over 50 full-time employees, you have to offer health insurance. So between 1 to 2 people, maybe you and your spouse starting your company, and then you've got up to 50, that's when you have to trigger this option, because you can kind of get away with either a stipend or maybe you're going to do some sort of reimbursement. There's different ways and different ideas, and we can support you there. And doesn't mean you can't offer healthcare before that, but that's typically when people really start taking it serious. And what happens usually about 50 employees is there's usually a constraint in a business. At any given time, you could kind of dig into what is holding back the growth of the business. And a lot of times, as you reach these higher numbers, it's all about people. That question always leads back to, I need more people, more talent. It's costing me quite a bit in trying to recruit more people and then train them. If you can keep them around, and usually that final decision to get that person to join your team and to really continue that scaling, that growth for your company, is your employee benefits and your cost to the employee of what they're going to have to pay to get the healthcare they need for their family. So what do most companies do? Well, early on, maybe you started out just paying them through QuickBooks. You just set up a way to get them paid, and maybe you joined a PEO. Maybe they had some health insurance. That's typically an early phase before 50 employees. That's where I see a lot of companies start. Nothing wrong with that. It still can be quite expensive, but when you look at the cost, of hiring a whole HR team and maybe a payroll team and all these different aspects of a growing business, you don't necessarily have to have that full cost. You can kind of fractionally buy that through those options. And then you move up to where you might move off the PEO or QuickBooks into a payroll system. This is when it gets to be a little more complex. There's a lot more data involved, and this means you're on the path to continue growth because you wouldn't be, putting a system like that in place until you are. So once that happens, then a lot of other things start to kind of snowball from there, which leads to the employee benefits piece. And what happens that I see the most common scenario is someone will reach out to, maybe a friend, a neighbor, a uncle, a cousin, somebody that's in the employee benefit space. And a lot of times they'll say, oh yeah, well just give me a list of your employees, their ages and their date of births, and we're going to go ahead and get you some quotes. And they start basically shopping the options for you. And these options are really just based on zip code and date of birth, the age of your employees. Now, why is that important? This is not necessarily a strategy. This is simply putting a band-aid on it. It's saying, hey, we're going to sell you insurance to cover this risk. And that's kind of where it all begins. And a lot of times it's one of these four. We call it BUCA: Blue Cross, United, Cigna, or Aetna. Those are the big four. If you're here in Utah with me, Select Health is another massive one that kind of owns this region, right? We'll dive into that too. But here's the problem. Fully insured, that just means you're getting told a price and you're not understanding and seeing anything behind the scenes. You don't see what your employees have spent on healthcare. You don't see what the admin costs are. You don't see what the other insurance that these companies are. They're buying insurance on top of you. Like they're buying what's called stop loss insurance, just like other large companies do. They're doing that behind the scenes, but you're not really seeing any of that. You completely are blind to that fact. So the biggest problem with fully insured is you don't have any visibility. You have no data to make good decisions. You just have to, at their mercy, whatever they charge you, they charge you. And so a lot of companies will stay in this strategy too long, and they'll kind of bounce around. They'll shop each one, almost like a cell phone provider. You're like, hey, this Verizon's this price this month. I'm going to switch over to T-Mobile this month and bounce around. And you can play that game, but you'll reach a point where that's not a very sustainable way to grow your business, and you'll have so much disruption, and your employees will be frustrated because the network will change. The doctor they want to see isn't on the list. It's just not a good strategy. So you want to get out of that as quick as you can. Also, when you peel back the layers, you're going to see there. When you get out of fully insured, you can actually see that whether you're fully insured or all the way self-funded, you're going to have the same components, right? You're basically giving money to a company to pay the doctors that your employees go see, or the hospital they go to, or the pharmacy benefits they're purchasing, the prescriptions they're purchasing, right? They all have the same structure behind the scenes, but when you get away from fully insured, you can see what those all cost. That's where you can make a little bit better decisions. The other problem is the Affordable Care Act passed what's called the medical loss ratio, meaning all insurance companies have to spend 85% of the premiums that you pay them, right? So if you pay them $1,000, they have to spend $850 on your insurance, on your claims. They have to spend that on everything, the admin costs, the claims, everything. And if they don't, then they have to give money back to you. They're basically capped at a 15% margin or profit for themselves. So this is an issue because they only can make 15%. Now think about that. If your company has multiple, services or products that you sell, and one has a higher, maybe has a 50% margin versus one has a 10% margin, obviously you're going to put more energy into the one that has 50%, right? Well, in the insurance industry, they're capped at 15%. So what do they want to do? They want higher premiums. They want to make more money, make your costs higher, because that's the only way they can get their profit dollars higher. Same percentage, but profit dollars higher. So what have they done? A lot of things to make sure that they're continually making money in addition to this 15%. So that cap of 15% is really a barrier, and it's caused a lot of disruption in the industry. So what makes up the 85% that they're actually spending of your premium? Well, two main parts to that. Your admin fees, right, for them to process, pay the bills, send out a card to your employees, and then the claims. So the actual payment to the hospital, the doctors, the facilities, the pharmacy, benefit manager, all those different parts to components to good healthcare are part of the claims. The admin fees include also what's called stop loss insurance or reinsurance. Now, if you're fully insured, you're not going to know anything about that, but you get out of fully insured, which we'll talk about, you can start to see that. It also includes commissions. So think about that for a second. If you're set up with your current benefits broker or consultant, and they're getting a percentage of the premium, a commission percentage, not a flat per employee per month arrangement, maybe it's 5%. Do they want to see your premiums go down or up? Just ask yourself that question, right? If you were in that position, that is a conflict of interest. It's the same conflict all across the board. The claims, doctors, hospital, pharmacy. This is the key component. This is the driver behind real cost of your health insurance. If your employees are not having a lot of claims because they're knowing how to navigate the system, they're not just blindly spending money with whatever facility or doctor they want to, and they're actually smart consumers, your claims will be low. But unfortunately, that's the issue. A lot of people put the blame on the insurance company for higher costs instead of looking at what is being spent on actual service and actual help. Okay. So another thing that these insurance companies have done is what's called vertical integration. We know vertical integration. We've seen in other businesses. Elon Musk is famous for this. And if he couldn't find something he liked, a manufacturer he liked, he would just create the manufacturer himself. So it's going from the top to bottom, right? The commodity, the idea of whatever supplies you need to make it, go to the manufacturer, go to the shipper, the distributor, all the way down to the customer. So from beginning to end. So what is that? How does that compare to the health insurance industry, right? Health insurance doesn't necessarily create any physical products, but they have vertically integrated. So here's just some examples for you. You can see on the left-hand side, there's 3 different rows, which is the third-party administrator, the PBM or pharmacy benefit manager, and then the hospital networks, right? Each of these companies, these health insurance companies, have also purchased parts to this whole infrastructure. They have a TPA themselves, they have a pharmacy benefit manager, and they have hospitals. And what does why that matters is they're able to control the prices. So they're able to basically increase the cost of the claim to make sure they get to the 85% or higher, so they get their full amount allowed by the government, but they also continue to raise those up so they come back to you the next year and say, hey, you spent this much more, you spent 50% more than what we budgeted for claims, but they're the ones that set the price on the claims, and your employees never have a chance to see that or question that. So what are you going to do about it? Well, you have to unravel it. You have to remove the conflict of interest. And the only way to do that is to take control back of your health insurance plan. And it's not overly complex. Even though the industry tries to make it that way, it's something you can do. Here's an even more complex chart. You can see there's a lot more going on here. There's a lot of other brands outside of those 4 or 5 that I showed you. You can see they continue to purchase other parts of the healthcare system so that they kind of drive you there, and then they can control the costs and make those what they want. So they're making money far and above the 15% that the Affordable Care Act set up to provide them to get. This is a great quote. My good friend Chris Hamilton always shares this quote, and it's something that's always stuck in me. It's show me the incentives and I will show you the outcome. Charlie Munger, right-hand man to Warren Buffett. The incentives for insurance companies to make money. It's just like if you think about the news, and their job isn't necessarily just tell you everything that's happening. Their job is to keep your attention. So they're going to tell you a lot of things that get your attention, maybe not necessarily positive or good or helpful, but that's their goal, right? Health insurance companies, they're incentivized for you to be unhealthy and spend more on health claims because they make more money. They're a business. So you have to separate those, and it's super critical because the only way they're going to make more profit is if they have higher claims. So if you want to keep growing your company, and if you stay on this model of fully insured and you don't unravel what's going on, you just get that renewal each year that says, hey, you're going to have to pay us 10%, 20%, 30%. I've seen as high as like over 50% more. And they'll come back to you and say, well, it's because your employees spent too much at the doctor and the hospitals. And, you might have, 5% of your staff that did have, some catastrophic things happen, maybe a car accident, maybe there was a preemie baby. There's all sorts of scenarios, and you can't always expect every year to be perfectly clean. But if you want to keep growing, you've got to do something about this. So what is possible? Well, the next step a lot of employers take is called level funding. This is where you can basically get a very similar experience to fully insured, but you're able to see the claims data or some aspects of the claim data. This is helpful, yet you have to you're still going to be a part of those vertical integration. You're still going to have conflicts of interest aligned, but they're saying that what will happen is these carriers will tell you they'll give you half of the savings back. So let's say they collect $1 million in money to pay the admin and the claims costs. Maybe it's 50-50, $500,000 for the admin fees and $500,000 for the claims. You come back and you only spend $400,000 in claims, so you only spent $900,000 of the million. So it's 100,000 savings, and they'll say we're going to give you half of that, 50,000 to you, 50,000 to us. But they'll only give it to you if you renew another year. And so they're going to continue to rise all across those and make sure that they don't necessarily make less. They want to make more. So what is after that? Well, the next phase is called a captive. This is where you're kind of pooling together with other employers to spread out some of the risk. This is really good if you have 50 to 100 employees, sometimes more. It just depends on what risks your employees have as far as health concerns that might come up. And these captives have basically packaged together in a way that they can buy the stop loss insurance. And think of stop loss insurance as like your max out of pocket on your personal health plan, right? The most you're going to have to pay. These stop loss insurers, they charge a per employee per month fee typically. And what happens is they say anything over $100,000, big car accident, then they're going to have to pay for that. You pay up to the 100, then they cover anything after that. So it could be $1 million, you only paid 100, right? So that risk is moved on to them, but it only kicks in at those dollar amounts. There's one that covers what's called aggregate, the whole thing. And if you want more stop loss, that'll come later. But the whole idea is that you're able to kind of pool together economies of scale and do that with a captive. The next would be to go to a partially self-funded or a direct primary care or a combination of both. Same situation, you just now have complete control and visibility to the data. You can separate the conflicts of interest. You can have the administrator be a separate company that has no ties to the actual pharmacy benefit manager or the hospitals. They're all going to be separate and not have conflicts where they're going to be incentivized to push you one way or the other because they make more money. The whole idea there is you're going to get access to care for your employees at a lower cost because you're able to tell them and train them. This is the key to all of this. You have to teach your employees that if they want lower costs in their health insurance, they want lower deductibles and lower copays, they have to be smart, and you have to show them and give them very clear directions on what to do in those healthcare situations that they have coming up in their family. Whether that's a teledoc solution, whether that's a direct primary care, you have a certain physician that you send them to. There's all sorts of scenarios. There's a lot to that, but that's the key is most employee benefit brokers or consultants don't want to do that work because they can just punt it off to the insurance company and say, you do it all for us. And they get paid more that way. So it's typically you're removing all the conflicts as well as the conflict with the employee benefits broker that you have. So it's why a lot of them will try and scare you from this idea. But it's unfortunate because it's not true. They just don't want to do the extra effort in most scenarios, right? And it shouldn't be something you're scared of because as your company grows, it's going to be more and more common. And the reason is the more you have working for your company, the less risk you are seen by an insurance company, by a stop loss company, because now you have more people that you can diversify across. And it's all math, right? The more people, the less risk because there's the smaller chance of people, a higher percentage of people because now you've got a huge amount. So when you get over 1,000 employees or 200 employees, it's over 60 more percent. And that number continues to rise as your company grows. And so large companies versus small companies, it's drastically different. They're going to go self-funded because they want to control this, and it makes way more sense. So what can you accomplish? Well, when you do this, when you shift from fully insured to a partially self-funded, you unravel everything, you get better access to care. Your employees are going to get better care. You're going to get a lower cost of the company. You're not going to have to pay as much of your share of the premium. The employees will also pay less, and you'll take that money and you reinvest it in other ways, whether it's to hire more people, to buy more facilities and products. You probably have a better return on investment in other ways than giving it to a health insurance company who just makes it easy for you, right? That's my job as an employee benefits broker. And I'm giving all this to you because I want you to go back and talk to your broker and see what they say about this. Push back on them. And if they don't want to do it, they don't want to dig in the details, they don't want to do a benchmark for you, I'm here. But if they do, great. I just want to make sure you're aware of what to do. So next steps. If you want some help, you want some ideas, and this doesn't cost anything. If you want to send me your benefit renewal, your recent renewal, it'll tell me a lot of information of how your insurance company has structured your plan to kind of give you a sense of what are they doing, why are they raising rates, and what can you do about it, as well as if you just send me your benefits guide, that's helpful too to see how you've structured what you've presented to employees. It's kind of the back end employer view and the front end employee view so that I can kind of give you a little bit more sense of what's possible. There's a link down below you can click on to upload that to me. It's all secure. I don't share that. I'm not going to do any content around it. I'm just simply wanting to offer that to you as just something that could be valuable. I will give you my second opinion. I'll run it through some of my team here and make sure that if there's anything unique and any good ideas, I'll just share them with you. That's my whole thing. I want you to have these. Obviously, I would love to work with you, but if you have a good relationship, I understand that too. And eventually, there's going to be a need because this marketplace, this whole insurance industry will continue to innovate and change and improve. And a lot of times that those improvements don't trickle down to you really quick. And so I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to take what large companies are doing, put it into a place where a company with 50 to 1,000 employees can really do some great things and leverage those dollars in a much better way. So I hope that was helpful. Please, again, if there's other questions you have, reach out to me. I'm going to continue to provide more and more content, but I wanted to kind of try to help you digest what's really going on in the health insurance industry and the healthcare world so you can help your company grow and not just waste the money in the wrong spots. So hope to hear from you soon. Thanks.